Okay, hi. Sorry, I'm running just a smidge late. Thank you for being here. Those of you who are here this morning, Friday, July 19th, 11-ish a.m., because I am running a little late. Um, Hello, how are you? Today, we are getting back into the troubled teen industry series that I have been working on. And we are talking about Bhad Bhabie, aka Danielle Bregoli, and her experience in this industry, which is unique to say the least, right? Um, so, one thing I wanted to mention that I feel like kind of flew under the radar. There's this new documentary miniseries that HBO Max put out, and she contributed to it. It's called it's called something I'm not positive that I can say on YouTube. But if you look in my video description, I have all my links. There's an article that I found that, hello, buddy, could you relax? There's an article that directed me to this new series that I didn't realize had come out. And the article, as well as I have the IMDb page for the series itself in the description as well. So you can find it. I think at some point we'll be able to talk about it a little bit more thoroughly. But I was going to say, like, I feel like I haven't heard Danielle Bregoli / Bhad Bhabie. I haven't really heard Bhad Bhabie talk much about this topic since 2021, when she very publicly on YouTube called out Dr. Phil and said that she was like, if you don't apologize to me by this day, then I'm going to handle things my way. And I was like, get him, Bhad Bhabie. And I was waiting for the getting him, and I like never quite saw it, or I wasn't sure exactly if maybe it was like a behind the scenes get him, buddy. So, if you know more about that, like how did Bhad Bhabie handle Dr. Phil her way, let me know, because I'm not positive if or how that ever happened. But either way, we're going to talk about her experience that brought Bhad Bhabie into the public eye about 8 years ago, when she was just 13 years old, and made her, buddy, on or off, jump or don't. Thank you. Okay. Whew. Made her famous at age 13. I have some kind of extensive notes here today, but then at a certain point I ran out of time to continue writing my notes. So it might get a little messy like toward the end of the stream, but just give me some grace on that if you don't mind. Also, I have a fundraiser on this video attached to Breaking Code Silence. That is the organization that Paris Hilton and Bhad Bhabie have worked with and have shared their stories through. It's an organization that is specifically meant to help survivors of the types of experiences that they have had, and meant to help prevent future of these things. So please, even if you just have $1 to give, I hope you consider donating to Breaking Code Silence. Also, just my typical opening stuff. Everything I'm about to say is my speculation, my opinion, my analysis of publicly available information. I am not personally a witness to any of the things I am discussing, but I do think that it's valuable that Bhad Bhabie used her platform to discuss her experience. And I think that that's good news. I like talking about when influencers are sharing something positive in a way, like kind of being an activist is a positive thing in my opinion. So I want to discuss it. And that involves, unfortunately, discussing the experiences that Bhad Bhabie went through. So let me start with an overview, and we'll get into it from here. Who is Bhad Bhabie? To this day, Bhad Bhabie is best known as the Cash Me Outside girl. But now, about 8 years since that infamous clip first aired, she's much more than that. Bhad Bhabie's origin story is the story of Danielle Bregoli, a quote-unquote troubled teen who went on the Dr. Phil show, said a few colorful phrases, to be sure, and got sent to a troubled teen camp called Turnabout Ranch, where she was cut off from the internet as well as other forms of communication. We'll get into it. When she returned to the real world, she found out that her Catch Me Outside clip from the Dr. Phil show had gone viral. And with the help of talent management and lawyers, she was able to turn those 15 minutes of viral fame into a full-fledged millions-making music and social media career. After a few years of being established as a real artist, in 2021, she used her platform for good by speaking out against Dr. Phil, Turnabout Ranch, and the troubled teen industry in general. And recently, she did so again in a new HBO Max documentary miniseries called Teen Something Inc. The something is the word that I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say, but it starts with a T. I've watched the first episode of this series and I highly recommend it. I'm going to watch the next two. I think there's only 3 episodes of the miniseries. I'm going to watch the next 2 episodes before I complete this whole series. So from troubled teen to musician to activist, that's basically the broadest overview of the Danielle Bregoli story. But that's typically not what you come to my channel for, a broad overview. So let's dive into this some more, starting at the very beginning. Quick note, before we get into this story, there will be some tough topics in this video relating to mistreatment of children, mental health, misuse of power, all of that good stuff. So if that is not for you, that is totally fair. You can skip this stream and wait for the next one. Please protect your mental health and go in peace, my friend. For the rest of us who are sticking around, are you ready? Do you have a drink? Do you have a snack? Are you cozy? Are you ready to settle in to a now elusive deep dive stream? Good. Let's dive in. So, my friends, Danielle's story first became public thanks to the Dr. Phil show. And before we start choosing heroes and villains in this tale, I want to start today with a quick assessment of the credibility of this show and of Dr. Phil himself, in my opinion. These are my personal opinions I'm about to shout. And guys, this is the strangest thing. Okay, so Dr. Phil McGraw is best known for hosting Dr. Phil, an advice show. Wouldn't you know it? An advice show that aired on television from 2002 to 2023. And do you want to know what's crazy about this? Literally everything. Especially for people like me who grew up hella sheltered and who this show was their first window into what therapy and therapists were like. There's a lot going wrong here, in my opinion. And I want to talk about it. Wikipedia really concisely lays out some important points that we can review together as a way of talking about it. So let me pull that up super quick for everybody. Okay? If you're here, say hi in the chat, like the stream. I forgot to say that. Like the stream, subscribe to my channel, set your notifications to all because I stream these days more than I do videos, all that good stuff. Let me know what you're drinking in the chat. Where you're at. Are you working? Are you on vacation? Are you in this country? Are you somewhere outside the US? I would love to know. Let me know. I like to get to know my peeps, especially the people who are actually present in the live stream. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Let's take a look at this. Ooh, let me edit this because this looks awful. All right. So Dr. Phil McGill. Mr. McGraw. Philip Calvin McGraw, born September 1st, 1950. Known professionally as Dr. Phil, is an American television personality and author, best known for hosting the talk show Dr. Phil. He holds a doctorate in clinical psychology, though, note, he ceased renewing his license to practice psychology in 2006. How long, quiz in the chat, how long was the Dr. Phil show on air? If you know the answer, put it in the chat. I'll give you a hint. It was way longer than 2006. The Dr. Phil show was on the air until May of 2023. So this is the path that we're headed down. Okay? So let's enjoy that. Let's look at his college education, his higher education. Philip played on a football team in high school. Whoa, sorry. I didn't think that was going to happen. Woohoo, that was weird. Phil played on a high school football team, and in 1968, he earned a football scholarship to the University of Tulsa, very cool, where he played middle linebacker. He later transferred to Midwestern State University in Wichita Falls, Texas, where he graduated in 1975 with a BA in psychology. He went on to earn an MA, master's, in experimental psychology and a PhD in clinical psychology in 1979, both at North Texas State University, now the University of North Texas. His dissertation was titled Rheumatoid Arthritis, a Psychological Intervention. So, we'll get back to that in a second. He did a year of postdoctoral training in forensic psychology at the Wilmington Institute. And then he was his doctoral advisor was Frank Lawless, who later became the primary contributing psychologist for the Dr. Phil television show. So, this is what I should be doing, Sour Green Dolly. Okay. So let's just pause for like a quick second. So, what I want to point out that's relevant to this particular story, I have no doubt in my mind that Dr. Phil is a very educated person. We just went through his rap sheet of education. But what I want to mention is let's look at the types of psychology he specialized in. Experimental psychology, clinical psychology, and forensic, oh my God, I'm sorry about the highlighting. Forensic psychology. Clinical psychology is very broad. So that could include absolutely treating children. But it is not the same as like specializing in child psychology. Forensic psychology is how psychology applies in a legal setting. Not so much related to kids. And I think that whatever part of him enjoys experimental psychology is the same part of him that decided to write a dissertation called Rheumatoid Arthritis, a Psychological Intervention. I'm no doctor, I'm no police, I'm no psychologist, but tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think you can cure arthritis with your mind. Like, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm happy to be wrong. But it's experimental to say the least, in my opinion. So, I don't think that every psychologist has to know everything about everything. You can't. And it's totally fine and good and valid for him to have specialized in these categories. But typically, once you choose a specialty, you stick to it and you avoid the things that you did not specialize in. Because there's so many psychologists in the world. You can make a great career out of just what you choose, like your specialty. So I just want to note, there's not a specialty in child psychology, developmental psychology, and I think that becomes important later on. I also, and again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, but I do find this to be a little bit of quackery. The idea that rheumatoid arthritis can be intervened psychologically. Again, let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong. I am open to being wrong. But now let's look at his early career. Philip, after obtaining his doctorate, McGraw rejoined his father in Wichita Falls, Texas, where the elder McGraw, Dad, had established a private psychology practice. In 1985, McGraw and his father partnered with Thelma Box, a Texas businesswoman, in presenting Pathways self-help seminars. So he's part of the self-help industry, which is another sketchy industry in the USA. I'm not doing a series on that one. But if you're the same category of sketchiness that like life coaches fall under, it's that kind of that kind of business. In October of 1991, 6 years after joining Box, the younger McGraw, Phil, sold his share in the company for $325,000. And that's 1990s dollars, okay? That's a lot of freaking money. It's a lot of money. In 1990, there's a little bit of an overlap here. So that happened in October 1991. Wheeling back a little bit to 1990, McGraw co-founded Courtroom Sciences, Inc., a trial consulting firm with lawyer Gary Dobbs. CSI, their company, would perform dry runs of court cases in simulated courtrooms, and McGraw would offer advice on what parts of the lawyer's case worked and what parts did not. So, why? Is he not a psychologist? Is he? Why? I mean, he did a year of forensic psychology, but I mean, and maybe his interests are changing. That's allowed. But I just think that's fascinating. Thank you, Sour Green Dolly. I've seen a lot in chronic pain management about using therapy to help manage pain, but personally I find the concept frustrating. If that worked, I'd be living a much different life. That's kind of where I'm at on it too, where like there's absolutely a correlation between like having a positive outlook and, you know, believing you're going to get better and like actually getting better. But at the same time, there's this of like, if therapy could help me manage my pain, I'd be living a whole different life. Like it's, you know, it's very hit or miss. It's a little, I don't know. Taya is on it. Thank you, Taya. I know you're going to bring back the tea. So Dr. Phil switched careers, it seems, out of psychology into fake running trials, which I think is interesting. I think that's a valid field. I think it's valuable work to contribute to the economy. It's interesting coming from a psychologist like himself. McGraw is no longer an officer or director of this company. There's a TV show based on his experience doing this. And he is credited as one of the creators. And then here we go, friends. This is how everybody knows Dr. Phil. McGraw began working with Oprah Winfrey through CSI. That's kind of the origin story that everybody knows about Dr. Phil, is that he's like a friend of Oprah's, and then Oprah brought him on her show a few times, and then he got his own spin-off show. Um, I think it's fascinating that happened not because he was a practicing psychologist who was like talking with her about psychology things, but because of this. In 1995, Oprah Winfrey hired McGraw's legal consulting firm, CSI, to prepare her for the Amarillo, Texas beef trial. I don't know what that is. It sounds fascinating. But I'm already doing a side deep dive right now on Dr. Phil. I cannot do a side deep dive on that. Am I fascinated? Yes. Is it going to make this video way too long? Yes. Okay, so that's how they met. Winfrey was so impressed with McGraw that she thanked him for her victory in that case, which ended in 1998. Soon after, she invited him to appear on her show. His appearance proved so successful that he began appearing weekly as a relationship and life strategy expert on Tuesdays, starting in April of 1998. So just as a refresher, at this time, I don't know if he was still like being a therapist, being a psychologist, but he at least had left the self-help company box and sold his shares in October of 91 and had started doing this CSI company, which seems like it would take a lot of time. So my thought is he probably wasn't still practicing as a psychologist since he started this company. I have to be making some speculations here, but it just seems like two incompatible things to do both. Especially if McGraw is the one sitting there watching the mock trial and then offering advice. That's a long, it's a lot of hours. You have to be there. So since 1990, he was doing this. And in 1998, he was offered on the show as a relationship and life strategy expert. That's a really, really legally allowed way of saying he was offering like therapy-like advice. And isn't all therapy relationship and life strategy advice? I suppose. That's a way of saying therapy without saying therapy. But that's kind of how it felt. So I feel like he was introduced in that kind of way as Dr. Phil, the psychologist giving psychological advice. So let's recap. Dr. Phil wasn't even a therapist when Oprah started the Dr. Phil show, which happened, hello, where is it? There we go. In September of 2002, McGraw formed Patesky Productions and launched his own syndicated daily television show, Dr. Phil, produced by Winfrey's, Oprah's, Harpo Studios. Dr. Phil is an advice show in which McGraw tackles a different topic each show, offering advice to his guests. You know what's misleading about that? When advice comes from a psychologist or from a therapist, it might be fair to consider that advice therapeutic. One might even say therapy. This is weird. This is a weird blurring of lines, and I don't like it, in my opinion. They made a bunch of money. He made a bunch of money. Everybody's rich. He's making a bunch of money. So that's the rest of the article there in that regard. So Dr. Phil wasn't even a therapist when Oprah started the Dr. Phil show or helped produce it. Since 1990, he had been working in the legal field as a trial consultant He also stopped renewing his license in the year 2006 after just a few years of doing the Dr. Phil show. And yet, he kept offering this psychological seeming advice to the world on his TV show with the word doctor in the title, Dr. Phil, all the way until 2023? This all, to me, makes the show title, Dr. Phil, feel super misleading. Because why the fuck was America taking therapeutic seeming advice from this legal consultant who left psychology over 10 years before starting the show, it seems, and who thinks you can cure rheumatoid arthritis with your mind? Why was this happening? Why was this allowed on TV? Y2K was such an era. The years surrounding Y2K, what a time to be young and watching TV. So I'm sharing this because I was surprised by a lot of this info about Mr. Phil's background. So I felt like I should share it. I think it's important context around why Dr. Phil has sent dozens of troubled teens away to these camps. And I know that he is a doctor. He holds a doctorate, but there's a difference between holding a doctorate and actually being licensed to practice. Thank you, Jay Rose. I've studied these concepts for years and have been in pain management for 10 plus years. Mind over matter concepts can work, but they take a lot of self-work, deprogramming, and reprogramming thought patterns. Very interesting. See, yep, that makes sense. Thank you, Taya. So far, this thing is 129 pages because of course it is. It's talking about how stress can aggravate chronic pain. Wow. Thank you, Philip. What a groundbreaking discovery. And how relaxation techniques can help reduce stress and some pain. I'll read more though. Thank you, Taya. I hope Phil was not the first person to come up with that. I doubt that he was. But I mean, it was the 70s. Who knows? Maybe that was groundbreaking at the time. I don't know. So like I said, I feel like this shows this history of Dr. Phil is important context around why he has sent dozens of troubled teens away to these camps. Troubled teens with big quotation marks around that, right? I think it shows that as an ex-practicing psychologist, which he was, who never specialized in child psychology, which again, I don't blame him for, but stick to what you specialize in, stick to what you're good at, and who changed careers drastically over time from psychology to legal to entertainment, okay? Mr. Dr. Phil didn't actually know how to help troubled teens, in my opinion. But he did know how to entertain an audience. So he and his team provided an over-the-top, extravagant, showy solution on their troubled teen episodes. One that made Phil look helpful when he was really just outsourcing the problem to someone else who was also unqualified to treat it. In my opinion, Mr. Dr. Philman exploited these families, sending his camera crews into their homes to film them fighting before their episodes, publicly shaming them on TV, and filming the teens being immediately transported to camps after filming his show, or even sometimes being stolen from their beds in the middle of the night and whisked away to these camps while they were terrified, screaming, and thinking they were being kidnapped. He televised that, framing the kid as the bad guy and framing the transporters for these camps as some kind of good guy who's helping them out in some way. He televised all of that. He reaped the financial benefit, and outsourced the solution, thereby outsourced any responsibility that he had to these families. After all, it's not like he was their therapist. So yeah, this man was the sketchy-ass mofo who feigned to give therapeutic-seeming advice to Danielle Bregoli, aka Bhad Bhabie, and her mother on TV that fateful day in August of 2016. This is where it all started going wrong, and we're just at the beginning of this harrowing tale. So let's pause for just a second. Thank you to those of you who are here. I'm going to take a sip, hydrate along with me. And if you're just showing up, do me a favor, like the stream. Comment, let me know where you're watching from, what you're drinking, what you're up to today. So, sending Danielle Bregoli to Turnabout Ranch. I'm going to rely on a lot of sources throughout this video. They're all linked in my description. I'm not going to pull up as many actual clips and pictures and articles as I was able to do in the Paris Hilton one, because there's more chance of copyright problems. But everything is linked below, just so you know. I'm also pulling from a lot of sources to compile, so there's sources below. Okay. In August of 2016, when Danielle was 13 years old, she and her mother appeared on the now defunct Dr. Phil show. But 2016 was not the first time that Danielle's mom had turned to the good old doc for help. Bhad Bhabie has said in a 2023 interview with Emily Ratajkowski that her mom was trying to get on Dr. Phil since Danielle was 3 or 4 years old. And personally, I wonder if that has to do with a situation that is very important here, in my opinion. Danielle described in a different video that when she was between the ages of 3 to 6 years old, she was the victim of inappropriate physical contact, and that she feels that this is the root of a lot of her behavior and her trauma. Perhaps her mom, when she reached out to Dr. Phil when Danielle was 3 or 4, maybe she was seeking help with that situation and not necessarily with just parenting Danielle. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But if Danielle knows that happened to her, it's probably because her mom knew. And if I was a mom and that was going on, I would want help with how to handle that. And, if you don't know where else to turn, you turn to Dr. Phil. That was very much the mentality. Either you watch on TV, because therapy is unaffordable. If you don't have the right insurance, you're paying a lot out of pocket for therapy. So it makes sense. People are like, oh, I can't afford therapy, but here's this doctor on TV giving a lot of therapy-seeming advice to a lot of people who seem like they need therapy. I'll just borrow the advice that he's giving to them and I'll use it for me. He became the place that you turn when you have nowhere else to turn. The blurred lines there are make it very ethically confusing for me. Anyway. So speaking of parenting Danielle Bregoli, why did her mom ask Dr. Phil for help in 2016? Well, to be honest with you, I get it. Danielle was not the most well-behaved kid, although I think that she was acting out due to her childhood trauma, including the inappropriate actions that I mentioned before, plus her dad not being in her life, plus her single mom being diagnosed with cancer when she was little, so she had to watch her mom fight cancer twice. Like, to me, that is a lot for a kid to go through before the age of 13. It just is. It's a lot. So no wonder she acted out, but I will admit that Danielle's version of acting out was on the extreme side. Danielle admitted in an Instagram live that I linked a clip of that she did smoke Mary Jane when since she was 12 to 13 years old. I know that's not so scandalous nowadays, but at her age, and especially a few years ago when it was less accepted and less legal than it is now, it certainly was a red flag. Before appearing on the Dr. Phil show at age 13, she had stolen her mom's purse. She had also filed a false police report against her mother. And also, when the Dr. Phil camera crew came over to their home to film footage, like I said, film footage of people fighting before they go on the show to talk about why they're fighting. When they came over with their camera crew, Danielle did get in one of the producers' cars and drive off with it, essentially stealing the car. So, that's 3 crimes so far. I'm so sorry. It's just that is what happened, according to court documents. Danielle's mom also claimed that Danielle would physically fight her, although that has been disputed a bit. So that's kind of, it might be a matter of interpretation kind of thing. Ultimately, Danielle's mom felt that Danielle was out of control. When you listen to Danielle talking about, look as an adult, looking back at this time and talking about what she felt like she thinks, when she's looking back as an adult and talking about what she thinks parents should do for a kid like her in her situation, instead of sending them away to camp, I feel like she's describing what she wanted at that time, because she said she wanted to be communicated with, she wanted to be heard, she wanted to be understood by her mom, basically, because she always says, just talk. You need to talk about it. You need to talk about what's wrong. It's not always easy to talk when things are escalated at that level. I'm not a parent, but I can just hazard a guess at that one. But if that's what Danielle is saying that she wanted at that time, I think it's fair to say there's a lot of probably other kids in the same situations behaving the same way, who that's really what they want, is understanding, being heard, being communicated with instead of yelled at. There's the difference. So it's interesting now. Again, we have this generational thing. This happened 8 years ago, and now Bhad Bhabie is this known person. She's much more grown up, and she can look back and say, this is what I wanted. So good. This is one, it's another person who, like, it's the first time that we have that kind of perspective over time. And I think it's valuable. So it seems that in the face of Danielle's behavior, her mom didn't know where else to turn. So she turned to Dr. Phil. And again, I feel like this is how Dr. Phil branded himself, as the place to go when you don't know where else to go. And because solutions need to be very specific to the person, and real people's real lives are not teaching tools for a former therapist, now entertainer, to exploit on TV in front of millions of viewers, I think that that's bad, personally. This show appearance happened in 2016 when Danielle was 13 years old. And as I said before, she definitely said some colorful things while she was on the show. But since then, she has also said in multiple interviews that her outlandish behavior on the show was, first of all, a response to the audience. And secondly, it was the result of coaching from one of the show's producers. So this is where I will bring up a clip. So let me share this real quick. Sorry, guys. We'll add this. We'll do this. We'll do this. We'll do this. This is the second video that Bhad Bhabie made on YouTube about this whole situation. And we'll talk about both of them over the course of this video. Don't worry. So here's what she says about her behavior on stage at the show. Okay?
Like that.
So the audience are a bunch of hoes.
Yeah. Catch me outside. How about that? You know the shit I was hearing in the crowd? So for you to tell me I can't say something back to people who are saying something to me? Second of all, the fucking lady who runs the show said to me, oh, when you get up there, do whatever you feel like will make a good show. Kick, scream, punch.
What else is there but some tough love?
Yeah, we'll talk about Ashley Banfield and the tough love thing. Was that super loud? Because it felt super loud to me, but I don't know if that's just my headphones. So I feel like that's worth noting. If the way that she behaved was not purely her own idea and her own thoughts, or like her own instincts to act that way. Oh, I gotta get a better pause for her. That's better. Okay, thank you, Sour Green Dolly. I'll adjust the volume a little bit. If that's what Bhad Bhabie was told, to fight, scream, kick, whatever, it seems like a really shaky foundation on which to build an assessment of Danielle's character, or on which to base treatment decisions. Almost as if that's why random TV hosts shouldn't be doing that shit. But instead, licensed professional therapists should be the ones to do that, who can actually assess the patient and treat them as a patient, and then make treatment decisions based on a real interview, not being on stage in front of a bunch of people, and like 100 or more people in an audience, and a bunch of lights and cameras, you know, because that's what real therapists do, is privately speak with someone, you know, but I digress, you know. At the end of this infamous Dr. Phil episode, Danielle's mom was offered to send Danielle away to Turnabout Ranch, which her mom agreed to. Danielle was escorted away, and she was there for months of treatment, and during that time, she went infamously viral before she came back from camp. I think that that's why Dr. Phil brought her back on the show for an update episode. During that update episode, she came back on the show and sat quietly and said that it was a good experience, and everybody patted themselves on the back for a job well done, a child changed, a life set back on the straight and narrow, a soul saved. Danielle ultimately got talent management because of the viral clip and the song that had been made about it especially. She became Bhad Bhabie, started releasing music. She debuted on the Billboard Top 100, making her the youngest rapper to ever do so. She built her brand and career with social media feuds and controversial songs, all the good stuff of the late 2010s. She started making money and making a name for herself. She became well known. She got nominated for a Billboard award. And as a side note, I will quickly say, I know that Danielle Bregoli, aka Bhad Bhabie now, has been problematic. I am aware, especially during this brand building time frame after Dr. Phil and before her Breaking Code Silence video in 2021. I'm not going to defend any of that because, you know, all I will say is that she has been world famous since she was 13 years old, since she was such a child. Most of her behavior that the internet hates on happened while she was a kid. And I hope that we can understand the difference between uninformed children making offensive choices versus grown adults making the same choices. I hope we understand who should know better and who, I don't want to say rightfully doesn't know better, but like logically makes sense that they don't know better, and then treat them accordingly when we criticize. But that's an aside. Back to the matter at hand. As of 2020, 2021, all the Dr. Phil stuff and the troubled teens stuff seemed to be in Bhad Bhabie's past. Until March of 2021, when she revealed the extent of the mistreatment that she had experienced at Turnabout Ranch, and when she called out Dr. Phil for sending her there. And that's what we're about to discuss now. So, yes, Sour Green Dolly, 13 and severely traumatized, no less. Absolutely. So, why Danielle broke her silence? It's thanks to Hannah Archuleta. In February of 2021, Hannah Archuleta, another survivor of Turnabout Ranch, and her lawyer, Gloria Allred, who's kind of famous, they released a statement that she was filing a lawsuit against Turnabout Ranch for her disgusting treatment there. This treatment included the fact that she was SA'd, or the allegation that she was SA'd by a staff member and then was punished for speaking up about it. Since the rest of the staff were convinced that she was just a bad kid being bad and making a false accusation. Do you remember when we talked about Paris Hilton and we said that this mentality exists, that these troubled teens are just born that way? They're just like intrinsically bad people who can never change or succeed. This is another example of how that mentality plays out into action. Bhad Bhabie said that Hannah Archuleta speaking out is what inspired her to speak out. And she felt that she needed to back Hannah up. And I really appreciate her doing this because at this time, Bhad Bhabie had kind of moved on from the whole, she's still to this day best known for being the Cash Me Outside girl. So I don't want to say that she's completely moved on from that image. But in 2021, she had a chance to do so and to leave that in the past. But bringing up Dr. Phil again and associating herself again with that experience was a branding risk. It was a career risk. But she took it because she felt she needed to back up Hannah Archuleta, another survivor. So she also said something that I feel is very important for context when we talk about Turnabout Ranch and a lot of these other places. So I want to show that to you as well. And I'm going to turn down the volume so I don't blast your eardrums out like I may have a second ago. I'm sorry. So let's take a look at the important context that she gives us.
Because I kept my mouth shut for so long. I did touch on it a couple times in different situations, but I really want to get my whole story out there and let everything just be out, because that's the thing with these places is you have no evidence. You don't have a phone there. They don't have cameras there. There's no evidence of none of this. And obviously all the staff is in on it, so they're not going to snitch on each other. All you really have is the kids that are there.
And remember, the mentality is that the kids that are there are bad. They're inherently bad. They're bad people doing bad things in order to hide how bad they are. I think we've talked about in the Paris Hilton situation, and we're going to talk about further, that the kids at these camps, when their parents sign them away, the staff there basically at multiple of these camps, by the way. This isn't just about Turnabout Ranch. This isn't just about Provo Canyon, which is where Paris Hilton went. The staff tell the parents, expect that your kids are going to try to manipulate you. Expect that your kids are going to lie to you and tell you that they're being hurt, they're being abused, they're being mistreated. They'll do anything to avoid facing consequences. They'll do anything to avoid being held accountable for their actions and needing to change their ways. So this kind of stuff is exactly what contributes to that. Them not even having security cameras that can be double checked to make sure people aren't lying. It's a facade. In my opinion, based on the stories I've heard, based on the testimony of people who've been there, I have not, that at the same time, they're speaking out of both sides of their mouth. At the same time that they're telling the parents that the kids are going to lie about how badly they're treated, they're also, there's no cameras, there's no phones, there's no way to document anything besides journals, which are heavily censored. So pick one. Either you're proud of the work that you do or you're not. Either you think you're doing the right thing to these kids or you're not. So keep in mind this allegation of a lack of documentation and a culture of secrecy as we go through the allegations against Turnabout Ranch. Personally, I believe that it's true, that there's no documentation and that there's a lack of evidence and that there's a culture of secrecy. And I believe that this is for a purpose that they do that. So there is a Hannah update from after Bhad Bhabie spoke out about her own experience, which we're going to get to in just a hot second. But I just want to finish up the Hannah Archuleta story by saying that later on in October of 2021, after Bhad Bhabie spoke out in the spring, Hannah also filed a lawsuit against Dr. Phil for sending her to Turnabout Ranch. And I have linked an excellent Rolling Stone article about this in the description of this video. It might be behind a paywall, I'm not positive, but excuse me, if it is, there's other articles about it. Basically, it describes a lot of what Hannah experienced, but it's also a kind of graphic description, so I don't want to just start reading it. This is already a kind of intense video. So now for Danielle. Danielle's story, Danielle's allegations. What did Bhad Bhabie experience at Turnabout Ranch? In March 2021, right before she turned 18, Bhad Bhabie published a YouTube video that I just played a clip of called Bhad Bhabie Breaking Code Silence, Turnabout Ranch, ABUSE, Dr. Phil, Danielle Bregoli. In this video, she describes her experiences at Turnabout Ranch, and she also gives an ultimatum to the man who sent her there. So let's take a look at that.
Dr. Phil, I am going to give you from now till April 5th to issue an apology, not only to me, but to Hannah and any other child that you sent to Turnabout or any other program like this. And if you don't, I'm going to handle things my way.
Strong words. I don't exactly, I think I said this before, I don't exactly know how she followed through on that. I imagine that she did. But if you know, tell me. Because I would like to know. I like justice. So let me know if you know how she got him. Maybe it's the Max series. Maybe it's the HBO Max series that she contributed on that just came out. Anyway, so in this video and in a lot of other interviews, she's spoken a lot now over the past few years about her experience at Turnabout Ranch. Bhad Bhabie lists out a lot of allegations. And as I mentioned in the Paris Hilton section, so they are surprisingly similar experiences to the camp experiences that Paris Hilton had. She didn't go to a camp. She went to a school. She went to Provo Canyon School. But Provo Canyon School and Turnabout Ranch gave these two kids surprisingly similar experiences, even though Paris Hilton and Bhad Bhabie went to these places in different decades to their different facilities. They got there in different ways from very different families, and they went there for very different reasons. Yet they had such similar experiences. So let's discuss. Turnabout Ranch, according to Danielle. It's a remote camp in the middle of nowhere, so there's no place to run. Kids are taken there against their will. Transporters can kidnap people in the middle of the night to bring them there. Or, the parents consent to the kid being taken, but the kid doesn't know that, so they think they're being kidnapped by strangers. Danielle spent the first 3 days at Turnabout Ranch sitting in the circle, which was basically an open teepee-like structure. She said she was not allowed to shower for those first 3 days. She was not allowed to lay down or sleep. She just had to sit upright in that teepee circle for 3 days. This sounds like what Paris Hilton described about spending her first 3 days staring at a wall. Do we remember this? Bhad Bhabie also describes that they did physical labor, the students, the kids, I don't know. They did physical labor like chopping wood and taking care of the horses on the ranch, but like in a weird way that didn't seem like just, we're all gonna get together and have a happy time farming. It seemed like weird punishment, like they had to scoop giant piles of manure. I don't think that that's like just part of horse care, One of the punishments that they had to do if they got in trouble was going in reflection, which meant walking around one of the yards for hours, walking laps, or sitting out in the cold. She said the staff had no sympathy. She said that they took away what she called necessity privileges, like sleeping on a bed, like eating good food, and like not being cold. This reminds me of a certain YouTube mom who is now in prison and how she treated her kids. Anybody? Connections? I didn't even mean to say connections. I meant to say, are you drawing connections? But happy accident. Okay. Danielle also said that the staff would strip you from your personality and that you have to act the way that they want you to act. This sounds like what Paris described at Provo Canyon, the focus on subduing, silencing kids rather than treating them, healing them, rehabbing them, even though it's called a residential care facility. Danielle said that she would get in trouble just for witnessing another student breaking the rules. She said that the staff was inconsistent, and if they were in a bad mood, they would just hand out punishments. She said she saw a kid getting held down for trying to leave, which they're not allowed to do. She especially felt like no one would believe her if she told the truth about what she experienced there, which also sounds like Paris Hilton. And remember, there, in all the commentary that I've seen on these places, there's a line that the staff will tell the parents, your kids are going to lie to you. Your kids are going to manipulate you to try to get you to take them out of here. They're bad, bad liars and bad, bad kids. Don't believe them. Let us work our magic. Don't take them out. One of the most disturbing things about Danielle Bregoli's story specifically is that she essentially tangentially witnessed one of the clients, one of the students, I don't know what, the campers, what do you call them? One of the quote unquote troubled teens unaliving a staff member and gravely injuring another one while he was trying to escape the camp. And he stole a car and was trying to drive the car out. But on the way to stealing the car, he attacked both of those staff members for getting in his way, essentially. As I said, one of them, he unalived. The second one was gravely injured. And then 2 years later, she succumbed to her industries and passed away after spending those 2 years being disabled by what this kid did to her. So there has been like in the Max, the new series on Max, Teen, I think I can say it now, Teen Torture Inc., which Bhad Bhabie contributed to. There's some discussion about this situation having to do with like they're not properly screening the kids that they bring into these camps. And I mentioned this in my last stream about Paris Hilton. If a teen has like any kind of trouble, any kind of quality or characteristic or behavior that is not like this ideal way of being, according to their parents, they just send them away to these camps. So that means you could get somebody anything from having anxiety and depression to skipping school and going out and partying, but not necessarily having like a mental illness, just like, typical teen rebellion stuff, to hold on, my cuckoo clock is going off. Can you hear the clock? I can. If I can hear it through my headphones, I feel like you probably could. Okay, it's done. So you have kids from all sorts of different, there for all sorts of different reasons, up to, like Bhad Bhabie, lover or hater, she was committing crimes before she went to Turnabout. And then, could just be a kid who was just kind of doing natural teenage rebellion, going out and partying. Could be a kid who was dealing with some mental health issues, but wasn't, that doesn't make a kid bad. And there was no proper screenings going on, because one of the things is that you are not supposed to admit to these places kids who are having self-harming or self-unaliving ideations. And that is the theory about this guy who did this, is that he was on that path, in that mindset, and he should not have even been there, because when they have these types of thoughts, they do extreme things. They're pushed to the edge by the conditions at these camps. Somebody in the documentary in the Max documentary made such a good point about at these camps, they put you through the ringer in order to try to break you, essentially. And the thing is, if you're doing that while at the same time, let's say you were sent there because you have an addiction problem at age 14 or something. So you're cold turkey detoxing off of your DOC, and you're also doing a bunch of physical labor. You're being subjected to really strict, like mean people. You're dealing with a different schedule, a new environment, place you've never been before, a whole bunch of new people, all of these new things, and suffering on purpose. They're trying to make you suffer so that you learn to behave yourself, essentially, subduing you, squashing you into submission. Some kids will comply with that. Some kids won't. And sometimes if you have a mental health diagnosis, that mental health diagnosis will get exacerbated by that process, not helped. So it's of the utmost importance that if you're going to take responsibility for a bunch of kids with a wide variety, a wide umbrella of different things going on, that you are educated and trained and qualified to care for kids in the first place, let alone caring for kids that have, troubled homes. Or like I've been saying all along, foster kids. Foster kids get sent to these places sometimes when they just have run out of places to put kids. They're like, well, I'll put them over with the troubled teen camp, with no regard for the fact that most of the time, kids are not in foster care because of what they do. Kids are in foster care because of what their parents did. So sending foster kids to a punishment camp doesn't make sense to me, because the kid didn't do anything wrong that needs punishing. That's why Paris Hilton was advocating in Congress to tell Congress to stop sending foster kids to these places, because that essentially means the government is paying these places to take care of these kids. The government is funding these awful unregulated places that are so mean to the kids, and they'll deny it. They'll deny acting this way toward the kids because there's no evidence besides the words of the kids, right? About how they were treated. So it can't be proven necessarily, but in my opinion, like I trust the hundreds of kids who've come out and said that this was like this, compared to like a few who will stand up and say, wow, this was really good for me. So that happened. They had this, and this teen guy who did this was related to somebody who was in leadership at the camp. So there's kind of a theorizing that like basically nepotism helped him not face the worst consequences. He got 5 years to life in jail because of it, as he should. I mean, I would have expected a higher minimum than 5 years, but when you're a minor, sentencing is different. But it's a lot. It's a lot. So Bhad Bhabie called all of this out. Whoa. Bhad Bhabie called all of this out in her YouTube video. So on top of the actual, like the things that were done to her and around her, there's also, she witnessed this event, this very unfortunate, traumatic thing to witness. And so she called it out. She called out the camp for like, what the fuck? Why are you treating kids this way? Why are you driving kids to the point that they do shit like this? Also, why was he even one of the patients? Why was he even one of the clients if he was capable of doing this? He probably needed actual care from like a hospital, from like people who knew what they're doing. And this was a point that was made in the Max documentary as well, that he was detoxing and he was driven by his detox to such desperation to leave there. Allegedly, this is what the documentary is saying. So we showed Bhad Bhabie calling out Dr. Phil for sending kids here, calling out the place itself for being so bad. And then she demanded from Dr. Phil an apology. So she used her platform to raise awareness. She also used her platform to demand a response from Dr. Phil personally, because screaming into the void, Dr. Phil could just ignore it. But she's saying, respond to this. Let me know that you've seen this. Reply to my email, please, to confirm that you've seen this. So I want to look at Dr. Phil's response on Banfield, on News Nation. This was... The clip that I'm going to watch came from March 30th, 2021. I don't have the exact timestamps on this. If you can't tell, this is where I ran out of time to write my notes this morning. So I don't have all the timestamps now, but I know pretty much what I want to say. I'm so sorry. Oh, wait. Wrong. Hold on. So let's look at Dr. Phil and what he has to say on Banfield with Ashley Banfield. And let's see what words of wisdom these lovely folks have to offer us this morning.
Banfield, my guest for the hour, the inimitable Dr. Phil McGraw. So, Phil, I'm reading the New York Post this weekend. I open up this story about a teen rapper named Bhad Bhabie, Bhabi, and
uh, the rapper named Bhad Bhabie called her out for for calling her Bhad Bhabie, because what a way to start. What a way to let us know how seriously you're taking this, Ashley. Let's continue.
And her real name is Danielle Bragoli, and she's saying, I want an apology from Dr. Phil, and if I don't get an apology by some date, I'm going to handle it my own way. She says that I was on his show 5 years.
Look at Phil laughing like this is funny. A kid, like, unalived two adults, like, in front of, not right in front of, well, there's details about this story out there in like deeper dive videos that other people have done. There was a good amount of violence that was committed in front of other campers. I don't know what to call them, victims. I don't know what to call the kids who were there. Look at him. Look at his stupid little smug little smirk. Come on, dude.
5 years ago, and I was recommended to go off to this boot camp, and they were abusive at this boot camp. I want to play this, the soundbite from your show, so everybody knows who this person is and what she was like at 13 years old.
It doesn't matter because she was 13. We know. She's so funny. Cash me outside. She deserves to go to camp.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, I had a vague recollection of that young. And by the way, let's remind everyone, that was 13. Not sure how I would have handled that 13-year-old if she were my 13-year-old. But let's talk about her and what she's now doing in her accusations. She says that the place that she was recommended to go was abusive to her, wouldn't let her sleep. What are your responses to her?
Well, she went to Turnabout 4 or 5 years ago, and if she had a bad experience, obviously I would hate that. We'd be sorry.
Hold on.
About that, but
hold the freaking phone.
Ago, and if she had a bad experience, obviously I would hate that. We'd be sorry about that, but.
She's telling you she had an awful experience, so you hate it. So you're sorry. You're couching this in the like, well, hypothetically, if she had a bad experience, I would hate that and I would be sorry. That's what she's telling you, Phil. That's what she told you. Again, with these people not believing the kids, it's this mentality that these quote unquote troubled teens just are bad. And that they are never telling the truth, and they just are bad people being bad at all times. They are lying. Smug, ignorant way to behave.
We don't have anything to do with what happens with guests once they leave the stage. I mean, that's between the guardian and the parent and whatever facility they go to. So we're not involved in that. We don't have any feedback from them. So whatever happens once they're there, that's between them and the facility. I assume she had.
That's interesting. And we can watch the response that Bhad Bhabie does to this, because that is not true, in my opinion, as based on what Danielle has shared.
She had a problem. She filed a complaint with the proper. Whatever happens once they're there, that's between them and the facility. I assume she had a problem. She filed a complaint with the proper authorities or something 5 years ago. So I really don't know much about it.
Rude. Fuck that. Come on.
So there's the other issue, is like when you have a child like that who is incorrigible. I mean, I just watched that behavior and I thought, wow, first of all, calling a group of people you don't know, who are mostly your elders, a bunch of hoes, and then saying, catch.
So Banfield is on board with this. She's going to talk in a minute about tough love. And that's the mentality of these places, is that it's tough love. This is just, you'll learn how to be good by chopping wood and scooping manure and not sleeping and not showering and not eating good food and being out in the cold and suffering. This is how. That's love. We love you so much that we want you to sit in the cold and not sleep and not shower and eat white rice. Out of love. Out of love. Like, I don't. Okay. So, that's kind of the substance of what Philip has to offer here. I'm skimming back through. Let me just see. There's one more section where he's actually saying something.
But you still have to protect them from themselves. And I think.
I don't even want to. God, I don't even want to listen to more of this because that's. Oh, guys, wait. Completely unrelated. So my stream a couple days ago about Raw Beauty Christie and Cody Ko. I've discovered a new hobby of mine. If you're ever in for a good laugh, pick any Peter Mon video and just start skimming through it. He's hilarious because he goes off on so many side tangents while he's talking that when you do the skip like ahead, like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever, he'll be talking about, and then I saw a fish and wow, would you look out there? And it's just like, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. If you're like bored and you need to be cheered up or like if you're having a bad day, you need to be cheered up, pull up a Peter Mon video and start skipping every 5 seconds and just see what, what he says. It's just funny. Okay, so I say that because this is, I just skipped and like landed in the middle of him saying the most toxic shit. And the mentality comes through that it's just, it underpins everything so strongly that these kids, these little kids who don't have the critical thinking skills really to be able to make honestly informed choices about what they're doing, a lot of the times it's reactionary. It's all reactionary, either to the current moment or to past trauma that we've discussed that she went through. She went through a lot before she was 13 and she went on this show. All they know how to do is react. So she's reacting. But you know, that's them just being bad kids. So let's look at Bhad Bhabie's reaction and response to Dr. Phil. So I'll pull that up. Hold on. I want to get the whole word in there.
And hundreds and thousands of emails and DMs and all types of stuff of multiple kids wanting to give me their stories. It just shows.
That was messy. My bad. Take 3. Okay.
So since I made my Breaking Code Silence video, I have gotten hundreds and thousands of emails and DMs and all types of stuff of multiple kids wanting to give me their stories. It just shows me, like, you know, I'm not the only one that went through these kind of things. It feels good to be able to relate. I just want to keep conversation about it going. I want more and more people to hear about it. I want word of mouth to travel so that everyone who has dealt with this or knows about this or knows someone or anything like that will continue to reach out so we have more and more stories.
I really appreciate that she is basically stepping forward as an advocate. And this is in 2021. She was just turned 18 at the time of this second video. The first video was right before she turned 18. It was like 10 days before her 18th birthday. So she's on the cusp of adulthood and she's coming out and saying, like, I will fight for this. And I love that. I love that.
Dr. Phil was questioned in an interview about the video, and he responded.
So, Phil, I'm reading the New York Post this weekend. I open up this story about a teen rapper named Bhad Bhabie.
Bhad Bhabie.
So first of all, she goes on there calling me by the wrong name. Bitch, your kid's probably...
And she's got a lot to say about Banfield, and I get it. I don't want to just show her whole video. Like, I want you to watch her video. But so there's some things that she dislikes about Ashley Banfield, and the fact that they showed the clips of her being sassy, but they didn't show her accomplishments since the show. You know, the platinum and getting nominated for a Billboard award and all of the good things that she's done. Sorry, I'm having a big problem right now with dirty pauses. I so apologize.
Gold and platinum plaques. Why don't you show me being youngest female rapper to hit Billboard? Why don't you show stuff like that?
So the audience are a bunch of hoes.
Yeah.
So we already looked at this.
Catch me outside. How about that? You know the shit I was hearing in the crowd? So for you to tell me I can't say something back to people who were saying something to me? Second of all, the fucking lady who runs the show said to me, oh, when you get up there, do whatever you feel like will make a good show. Kick, scream, punch.
What else?
And I'm so glad that she pointed that out, because it's not a proper representation of who she is and how she acts. So it's a poor foundation on which to build treatment decisions, which I know that, you know, he's not their therapist, but he is making suggestions and offering to fund this option. And when people have nowhere else to turn, they will take the thing that the trusted psychology-ish guy is offering, even though at this time he had not been licensed for 10 years. He stopped renewing his license in 2006, and he still felt he had the authority to be suggesting that people send their kids to these places. I can't.
What else is there but some tough love?
Tough love at a fucking ranch? To me, I think tough love is like telling your kid no when they want something because you know it's better for them even if you know they really want it. Or not letting them do something that may be bad for them even though you know that they want to do it. Or telling them about themselves. That's tough love. Malnourishing, humiliating, screaming at, sleep depriving. That's not fucking tough love.
She says that the place that she was recommended.
I agree with her. I don't think anybody could disagree. And I don't like this tough love argument because of all the places that we've seen it go so terribly wrong. References again, Ruby Frankie. There has to be a line. There has to be a line drawn. And there has to be an understanding of what a kid knows and understands about the behavior that they're exhibiting versus what is just they're reacting to pain and they don't know how to react.
Recommended to go was abusive to her, wouldn't let her sleep.
That's all I said was that they wouldn't let me sleep. That's the only accusation. I just said, oh yeah, and they wouldn't let me sleep. It was so bad. I seen a kid get held down for trying to leave, took in there against my will. It's basically like kidnapping. They strip you from your whole personality. One of the kids, he had tried to steal a car or something. Everyone was screaming on the walkies like it was really crazy, and he ended up killing one of the staff members. And she sets up a question like, oh, this is gonna be funny. Like it's a funny matter of him sending children, minors, to a fucking facility where they're getting abused.
She went to Turnabout 4 or 5 years ago, and
Philip. This is the lawyer in him coming through. This is the legal experience coming through of like, how can I distance myself from something that I definitely did? Well, it's been a few years. Maybe it's gotten better. I didn't personally go, so I don't personally know what she actually experienced. Maybe she's lying because she's just a bad kid who lies. So, like, brother, please. Oh, brother.
she had a bad experience. You know, obviously, I would hate that. We'd be sorry about that.
This ranch is still listed on your website after a lawsuit about a murder, a lawsuit about sexual abuse, and a lawsuit about torture.
We're not involved in that. We don't have any feedback from them. So whatever happens once they're there, that's between them and the facility.
He just said he's not involved in any treatment facility I go to. Are you fucking nuts? Are you actually fucking nuts? I'm really trying to keep my composure, but these two are really not making it easy. My mother signed a...
I just need to pause for a second. Actually, hold on.
consent of release of information to send progress reports directly from Turnabout to the Dr. Phil show. So when you say you don't have any fucking feedback from them, that is not true. So if you're saying you don't have any feedback, maybe you should be getting feedback about these places before you're just sending multiple people's fucking kids here. You're just trying to save your ass. That's all you're trying to do is save your ass. But there's too many stories and there's too many people behind this that you can't save your ass anymore.
I assume.
I love how perceptive she is as a just turned 18-year-old. I did not have I did not have that when I was her age. So she sees right through his bullshit. And it is bullshit. And I'm surprised that, I mean, I'm not surprised. I don't know. That's a pretty easily that's the kind of lie that's pretty easy to call out. So I'm just surprised that he would sit up there. I mean, unless that's stuff that the producer does that he doesn't personally know about and blah, blah, blah. But like, it's just silliness. It's just deflection. So there's more to this video. It's great. There's more to the original video that Danielle Bhad Bhabie made as well. I recommend that you go watch the both of them for more context. But so that was Bhad Bhabie speaking out back in 2021. I guess essentially like her summing up her points at the end of that like response to Dr. Phil. She was saying like, I asked you for an apology. You did not give me an apology. So I'm still going to come for your neck unless you do, essentially. And again, like I said, I don't know exactly how or if she followed through on that. I do know Hannah Archuleta went forward with suing him in October of 2021. And I like to think that that was in some way inspired or encouraged or maybe funded by Bhad Bhabie. I don't know. Because lawsuits are expensive, especially if your lawyer is Gloria Allred, who's like famous and good. She deserves it, but like could not be cheap. So the most recent thing that we've heard from Bhad Bhabie about this topic is the series that just got released on Max like within the last week. It's called Teen Torture Inc. I've watched the first episode and I've taken some notes on it. I'm gonna include some more information from this series as I keep watching it, like when I make a final video about all of this stuff. But I just want to point out some more common threads that I'm seeing. There's a reason that the experiences at all of these different camps at different times over the different decades is similar. We're going to talk about it in another stream. Probably my next stream will be about the common root of all of these camps. It's culty. If you're not, it's culty. It's fun. It's culty. So the common threads that I see between Paris's story and Danielle Bhad Bhabie's story, based on watching the first episode of the Teen Torture Inc. documentary miniseries on Max, there's a fear of not being believed by parents if they tell the truth about what they experienced at their program. We saw when I was talking about Paris Hilton, she did not say anything about what was actually going on until her This Is Me or This Is Paris documentary that she did in 2020. It filmed her telling her mom for the first time 20 years later what she experienced at Provo Canyon School. And like the look of realization on her mom's face to the extent that she could, because she has a lot of Botox. Botox isn't, I'm not hating on Botox. I'm just saying there's not a lot of expression compared to what I think is the emotion she was feeling. So there's commonality with other cults that I'm seeing as well in this first episode of HBO Max miniseries Teen Torture Inc. If you guys don't know, I watch a lot of content by former Scientologists and Jordan and McKay, like ex-fundies, like all of these kind of ex-cult people. So one of the stories that came out mirrored the way that problems are handled within Scientology is the way that one of these women's problems was handled. I'll talk about it more in the next episode. I just thought that was fascinating. This one I'm just mad about. Provo Canyon School, which is the school that Paris Hilton went to, and which, according to this documentary, takes kids as, the documentary says that they take kids as young as 12 years old, but the woman who was featured in the documentary, she said that they take kids as young as 8 years old, this school that Paris Hilton went to, where they put her in isolation and like did all sorts of gross stuff. She got medical examinations of her private regions, you know, that whole thing, as young as 8 years old now. So that school is owned by UHS, which is Universal Health Services, Inc., which is the corporation. It's a Fortune 500 company or whatever that owns the place where I used to work as a receptionist when I first started this channel. And I've got to tell you, fuck those fuckers, because fuck that. And I'm pissed, because based on what I saw just at like that facility where I was working, which was, it was not a kids, it was not like a troubled teen facility, but I'm not surprised that UHS's hands are dirty here. And it also goes to show, if in doubt, these are not nonprofit places that are working for a higher cause. These are places that are there to make money. They are there to bleed dry the pockets of the parents, the government who sends foster kids, whoever. They want to charge a lot of money to have kids come experience the most minimal, providing them with minimal resources. Apparently they're not spending money on heat because they talk about how cold they are. Making them just sit in rooms. They're not spending money on activities. They're certainly not spending money on like fun decorations and like cute activities for the kids. They're there sitting at walls, walking laps around yards, sitting in isolation cells, doing manual labor. I don't know why it costs $30,000 to $60,000 to send your kid to this kind of place, but that's what they're in it for. And breaking your child, in my opinion, based on what I've seen. And UHS, fuck you for doing it. Fuck you. There's a couple of quotes from the Dr. Phil show that Teen Torture Inc. shows on screen. So I want to read those because I think that it's particularly relevant to this episode of our series here. So quoting from Teen Torture Inc. Thank you. Quote, "The Dr. Phil show has relied in court on signed parental consent forms from participants. This paperwork states that parents accept responsibility for the decision to send children away based on their own independent evaluation of the programs," unquote. So, if kids are being sent straight from the Dr. Phil show to Turnabout Ranch, which is what happens when he sends kids away to these places, Turnabout Ranch and other such, what is the independent evaluation that the parent has a chance to do? The evaluation is, oh, Dr. Phil recommended this place and I trust Dr. Phil. Okay, sounds like a good idea. I hate when documents like this, these waivers of responsibility, are so disingenuous. Like, come on. Is that legally fine? Sure, technically. But like don't pretend that this was actually a reasonable option for parents to have any kind of evaluation. A lot of places don't allow the parents even to come visit. I feel like that's something that Bhad Bhabie has said at some point. It's disrespectful to even have that in the waiver. Because I don't know how true it could even be. Further quote, "The waiver also states that the show will endeavor to refer guests to providers that it deems reputable and professional." So do they deem Turnabout Ranch reputable and professional? How about now? My God. I want to talk also about, just to finish that off, Dr. Phil and Turnabout Ranch did not directly respond to Teen Torture Inc., this HBO Max series, when they requested comment. And this series featured Bhad Bhabie. It talked about her story again. So she's not sitting quietly. She is taking this seriously. She's finding ways to talk about this. I appreciate it. Almost all of her interviews and stuff ever since she came out about this in 2021 have involved this story in some way, as it should. I wonder if in any way that has anything to do with why Dr. Phil, why the show was canceled in 2023. I don't know, because he'd been doing the show for over 20 years, so he could have just been like, I'm old and tired. But I don't think that this helped. I think that there was some shadow being cast on the reputation of your show by somebody speaking out and using their platform for good to say, Dr. Phil, fuck you for sending me here to go get, like, harmed, you know? I think there's an important quote from one of the contributors to this documentary regarding behavior modification, which is the technique and the tactic that's used at these places. Like I said, like they're just trying to break your kid, but they're not going to call it that. They call it behavior modification. I don't have the name of this contributor, but it's in the documentary. I was trying to find his name. I couldn't find it. So he says, quote, behavior modification, as it's come to be known, is putting people into controlled situations and trying to change how they think. The simplest example is, if you want to quit smoking, you might put a rubber band around your wrist, and when you have a thought to smoke, snap the band, feel a pain, maybe you'll stop smoking. That's behaviorism at its essence. The only difference between brainwashing and behavior modification is that if it's done in like a Chinese prison camp, we call it brainwashing. If it's done in rehab for teens, it's called behavior modification, but it's the same thing. What a perfect summary of the problem here. This is all, it's results based, it's not process based. It has to do with, I want you to act this way. I don't care what you think. I don't care how you feel. I don't care about reasons. I'm not going to give you reasons. I don't care about your reasons for acting the way that you're acting. I don't care about you. All I care about is your behavior and your behavior falling in line with what I think you should behave like. So until you do that, I'm going to oppress you. I'm going to silence you. I'm going to hurt you until you do what I want you to do. We can look at it in every other context and see it for what it is. But when it comes to parenting, when it comes to teens, it's tough love. It's just, you know, it's just a rustic style of parenting. It's just behavior modification. Or it's just like oppressing and squashing your child until they want to go off themselves. There's also that. You know? Especially if you send your kid to a place like this because of something like depression and anxiety or autism. Or something like being gay or being anywhere on the rainbow. Squash that. That's we don't want you to stim. Stimming is rude. We don't want you to kiss boys because you're a boy. And I don't like that behavior. Shut up. I hate that shit. It's result focused. It's focused on the end result and nothing on the process of how you get there. I think the process is so much more valuable, and obviously the only thought that's been put into that process is abusive. Speaking of which, Do you remember how in the when we talked about Paris Hilton, I mentioned that she had experienced 5 different romantic relationships that she said were abusive because she felt like that was what she was taught was love by Provo Canyon and by these places, tough love. And she became conditioned to expect that as a form of love. And now she knows that that's not the case. So I am aware of a recent Instagram story that Bhad Bhabie allegedly posted and then deleted, which shows Ring camera footage, allegedly, of DV being inflicted on her while she was visibly pregnant. She just had a baby in March. There's not much for me to say about it other than to acknowledge it and to say that if that video is what it looks like, I really hope that Danielle goes to the police sooner than later. And it's really, really, really sad to see Danielle allegedly potentially ending up in another abusive situation. And I can't help but think of Paris Hilton and that this situation might mirror that. If you're taught that pain is love, you come to expect pain, not resist it, not have it be a red flag, not put up a boundary. That's the problem with these places. It's not just send your kid, we'll fix them up, we'll ship them back home to you all shiny and new and obedient and good. It's trauma. It traumatizes them and they carry that trauma for the rest of their lives. And until people acknowledge that and legislate about it, which is why I'm glad that Paris Hilton is speaking to all of these places, helping pass laws in all of these places, nothing is going to change without regulations, without laws, without investigations, without the work like Paris Hilton is doing. And the way that you get to the work like Paris Hilton is doing is by doing what Bhad Bhabie is doing, raising awareness, using your platform to point at this and say, stop it. Here's why. Because what was done to me is wrong. So I appreciate these women very much for stepping outside of what is typical. What do we usually see? Influencers using their power and their platform to do, not help people. That's for sure. That's an overgeneralization. A lot of money has been raised. Please donate to the fundraiser attached to this stream, for example, for Breaking Code Silence, which is the organization that both Paris and Bhad Bhabie are working with when it comes to this issue. I'm not going to say that all influencers are all bad, but usually on this channel, there's so many examples of influencers misusing their power and influence. So it's such a bright, shining star to see someone as mainstream huge as Paris Hilton and somebody as, viral as Bhad Bhabie is from the Dr. Phil days, but, also an overcomer for the way that she took that moment and made it her own and made her own life and career and millions and set herself up based on what could have been a flash in the pan that embarrassed her. She turned it into a comfortable life for herself and her, any kids that she might want to have, her future is set. Having them speak out about the realities of this as people who've actually experienced it is so vital. And so I really appreciate their willingness to do so, the changes that it makes to their brand as doing so, that they're willing to risk, because people could react really badly to this. And they probably have, and they don't care. They know how to handle people yelling at them. They know how to handle not being believed. They know how to handle pain. So I really appreciate them speaking out. I think it's an excellent example. And we're going to discuss probably in the next stream that I do on this topic, which I'm not going to make an estimate on when I'll be able to do that, because the last time I estimated, I was wrong. But the next time we talk about it, we're going to talk about the origins of these programs, these places, why they're so similar over decades and generations of kids and who go to these places, where it all started, and why it's especially it's all the more problematic that the government is sending foster kids to these places. The government is funding these places essentially, that there's no regulation, that there's no protection for the kids. At this point, it's a danger that there's not. And we're going to talk more about that next time. I'm going to go into the comments. Thank you all for being here, who are watching, and for having a nice chat while we're looking at it. Yeah, Disney. Belly laughter in happy thoughts won't fix my genetic mutation. Exactly. The thought of rheumatoid arthritis being fixed with your mind. You know, there's some things that positive thoughts can do, but there's also medicine is good for you. Surgery is good for you sometimes. You know, I don't know. Uteya. His dissertation wrapped up with the conclusion that relaxation techniques are an accessible thing to add on to treatment that could be added to other forms of treatment. Oh, okay. So yeah. Cool. I really hope that he's not the first person who came up with that. That was a doctoral dissertation? That like relaxing is good? Okay. It must have been easy to get a doctorate back in the 70s. You did not have to have any fancy thoughts. Okay. Hey, Sammy, I'm glad you made it. And this is fair. You know, I don't know what I would do if my daughter acted like that, but I don't think I'd take her to a talk show to show the world how she acts. Exactly. And the answer, especially nowadays, therapy is so accessible. Do therapy. Therapy is the answer. When in doubt, not a TV show. If you have any problem and your thought is, I should go on TV about this, no. Because then, again, it's result focused. It's not about you. It's about making a good show. The end result of the show takes priority over you actually getting help and actually getting served by whatever show. The same thing with Extreme Makeover Home Edition, for example. People who needed houses, they came and built these houses. And then within like 5-10 years, there were problems with the houses. There were these giant tax bills that the people were unable to pay. Like there was such inconsideration for the longevity of the reality of people owning these houses long term, because that's what they were built for people to live in. And then they have to like sell these houses or you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars of repair that they didn't ask for. These houses are surprises, you know what I mean? So like, it can't all be about the show. It has to be about the people who are on the show. And if you want to be cared about as a person, a TV show is not the place. And a TV doctor is not the doctor. I'm just reading through the chat real quick. Also, if you can't tell, my voice is going. Thank you. I like dad jokes. Everyone's are welcome. I think it also goes to show how many people believe that their kids are their property and abuse is discipline. I think people don't know the difference between, like, where's the line between abuse and discipline. And we got to talk about that as a nation, because kids are being traumatized and then raised, and then like being raised, and if they're in a remote enough community, they don't ever get an outside influence to tell them, hey, there's another way, and they continue a cycle that it was never their fault to begin with. There's a lot we got to talk about as a country, but that's one of them. Okay. You guys are great. You're having great conversations in the chat. Oh, excuse me. I'm super warm. I think that's it for me today. I hope I said everything I wanted to say, because I didn't like fully flesh out my ending notes the way that I wanted to. But I mean, I said a lot. It's almost been 2 hours. I recommend that you check out all the links in the description so you can go straight to source material and learn more about Bhad Bhabie and her story. There's a good article that does a good like summary of all of this as well, if you're more of a reader than a watcher. If you're still here, thank you for being here. I hope you like this video. Subscribe to my channel, set your notifications to all, because I stream more than I do videos these days. And I think I'm going to continue this. That's interesting, Sam. Yeah, I know that feeling. Today's Friday. Hey, today's Friday. So I'm gonna put out more content on this topic. I'm gonna do a series mega video where I kind of edit down and compile it all together into one at some point. And I'm gonna watch more of that HBO Max series as well. That is also, the IMDb page is linked in my description. So I hope that you let me know what you think in the comments about this topic, about Bhad Bhabie, about Dr. Phil, about these ranches, about where is that line between abuse and discipline? And also, if you have to ask that question, are you taking it too far? If you're trying to find the line, I don't know. Thank you for being here, those of you who are here, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I gotta get out of here. Peace be with you always. And goodbye. I think we're good. I think we're good for today. Bye.